Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
Congratulations, you have found Double Feature. Michael Kester found Double Feature.
I did, yeah.
And my name is Eric. And
no, I can't leave.
Your reward. You're trapped here for at least 40 minutes, my friend. The movies we're doing on the show today are Haywire and Centurion.
Yep.
But I feel like in order to get into this show today, you need two pieces of information about the very show itself.
Okay, so if I were to take a random stab at what those would be.
Please.
The first would be chapters that you can navigate through this podcast.
This is great. This is great information.
Much like Quintus Dias through the
Wow.
Pict Badlands.
Can you tell after 5 years we're so fucking bored of giving the intro? We're bored. I'm bored right now.
I'm sorry. There's a chapters menu. You can go up, you can click again, and then bam, you're talking about Centurion, you're talking about Haywire, you're talking about
You can
next
skip
week.
to other parts of the show.
Who
That's
fucking
great.
knows?
That's
Who
a great
fucking cares?
feature.
And then if that's all, wonderful and great, spoilers. That's the other thing. We
There's spoilers
spoil the
on
film.
this show?
Every week.
Why didn't you tell me that 200 fucking episodes
I don't
ago?
know. Every time, every week, we spoil the films. We get a kick out of it.
That's like
Gives us-
400 fucking movies that have been spoiled for me.
Yeah, spoiling the films puts us at half-mast, so we make sure to get it in at least
Wait,
once a
what?
week.
Oh, Jesus.
Um,
Can we start talking about the movies?
yeah.
Haywire is amazing.
Haywire is... Yeah.
Can I tell you something about Haywire?
One thing?
Well, I want to tell you one thing, and then we'll just move on to Centurion.
Okay.
That's not true at all. I'm going to tell you a million things about Haywire. I hadn't seen this yet.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is all sorts of weird, because it's a Soderbergh movie.
Yeah, that I saw in the theater.
That you saw in the theater and then told me to see.
Yeah.
Haywire is my new favorite fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
I am in love with Haywire. Oh my God, is Haywire good. So Soderbergh is this guy we talked about on the show
We
before.
talked about him, yeah. We did the Girlfriend Experience.
We did do the Girlfriend Experience. And his movies are perfect for the show because there's a bunch of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
It's always weird stuff. There's
Sure.
they're talk about me kind of movies.
Sure.
That's fine. At any given point, I feel like this show is easy after a Soderbergh movie because this is what you do after you go see a Soderbergh movie with somebody.
Absolutely.
But we talked about the Girlfriend Experience, totally different than the stuff from Haywire. But we did mention some of the same Soderbergh stuff.
Yeah.
The kind of tendencies he has as a filmmaker. And so I don't want to rehash a lot of that, but he makes a lot of artistic, smaller movies.
Right.
And he makes a lot of bigger budget movies that kind of finance those.
Sure. And then do you get the feeling that Haywire is the first time he did that both at the same time?
I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, man. And I try not to want to say that because that's obviously the thing about this movie.
That is
right?
the thing about this movie.
I can
there's
hear-
two big things about this movie that I think are absolutely fantastic and bizarre.
Spoil the other one for me really quick.
Gina Carano,
Okay. good.
only female in the film.
What?
Think about it.
Whoa. Okay. I don't even want to talk about the other thing now. But, the thing that bugs me about this, just having this conversation with you is without having heard anyone ever say anything about the movie Haywire, I know that the conversation in review world, it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to go, this movie sucks, blah, blah, a bunch of stupid stuff that I personally don't care about. Don't want to hear, don't care about.
Sure.
Or it's going to be a person going, this is a unique and amazing blend of the smaller Soderbergh pictures and the bigger ones.
It's where you take the cast from Ocean's 11, put Sasha Grey in the middle of it, and then kill off the cast of Ocean's 11 one by one.
Right. But I mean, I have to say it because it's true. It's fucking true, man. There is a natural tendency to look at his movies and think,
Which is this?
yeah, I mean, we have the artsy stuff, we have the commercial stuff. When are they going to combine into a perfect thing? Gus Van Sant, we had the same
absolutely.
thing.
Sure.
You see his artsy stuff, you see his commercial stuff, and you go, eventually, these things might combine into one
I
person.
believe
Not
that
to
was
say,
called Milk.
well, that's it, man. I mean, and that was the thing I do remember that came out, and everybody said that. They said he's taking all the artsy stuff and building it into a commercial picture. I don't like saying that because I don't feel like there's anything wrong with Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
and
I don't
think
either.
there's anything wrong with a Girlfriend Experience.
Agreed.
It's fine keeping those separate, and it seems like I'm being set up to say put them together. Having said all of that, I see Haywire, and it's everything I love about the big budget spy stuff.
Yep.
And it's everything I love about these people have not been in other movie stuff.
Right.
Oh my God.
Well, and it's got a little bit of our favorite little thing on it. It's got this exploitation factor. Did you see the trailer for Haywire?
I knew nothing about Haywire. You told me to see it, and I just watched it.
Okay, so the trailer for Haywire is all of the fight scenes where Gina Carano uses her MMA skills to kill people.
Oh, God.
And then guns. That's the trailer. The trailer is guns and fighting, and then it says Haywire.
So they're billing it like an action film.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is an action film. Okay, so movie opens.
Yeah.
You get that diner scene.
Yep.
And this is what I'm talking about, man. It's this perfect kind of, it's big budget action, but it's shot in the way that you shoot Bubble or Traffic.
Sure.
You know, that you shoot the girlfriend experience. It's almost like, and it's effective. That's the fucking, it's not just why not combine the elements, because I know how to do both of these things. It's as if you're watching a home video of the fucking spies from the movies flipping out and kicking people's asses.
It's reminiscent of news from Maine today.
Yes.
Cameras outside of a local diner catch,
God.
and then it just shows, then the news anchor switches to live video of these spies kicking the shit out of each other at a diner.
It's the thing you're supposed to love about found footage.
Yeah.
It's the entire concept of that.
Right.
And this movie's not even showing it off. It's not even going, oh, well, look what I'm doing here. I have found footage of spies.
Because it's just as easy to take it, make it grainier, and have the surveillance camera go left and right and pan away from the fight, and then come back, and it's in a different scenario.
But he doesn't need an excuse. This is just how he makes movies.
Yeah.
He makes movies where it looks like you're shooting it with a home video camera or a cheaper than commercial quality, kind of setup. The news at 9 kind of setup. And god damn it, does that work. The fights are, they're not sexy. They're dirty real. They're sexy because, they're great, but they're not slick. They're not produced. No. They look so realistic. There's that moment, not just the diner, but the thing after that where she corners the guy where they're in Barcelona, right? It's the first thing, they go to Barcelona. She corners that guy. She's chasing him.
She hops up on the wall.
Yeah. Immediately just fucking pins him from the... I'm making a gesture with my hand no one can see.
Sure.
It's awesome.
Right.
It's awesome because you don't expect it. It's awesome because it's not the same shit you get every time.
Sure.
You watch enough action movies in a row, and action movies in a marathon format, it's not like horror where you just see how brutal you can get.
Yeah.
Action movies do actually wear down as you watch more and more of them.
Because there's only so many different ways you can punch someone, and
you
there's
blow
only
up
so
a car,
many...
it looks like a car blowing up.
So, and that's what Haywire brings to the table that's never been brought to the table before. It brings this thing, and it's this big, massive... No, it's not. It's one thing. And her name is Gina Carano.
Okay, we'll talk about Gina Carano. Let's do this.
So Gina Carano is an MMA fighter.
Yes.
You're familiar with MMA
We talked
fighting.
about the wrestler and MMA a little bit.
So
right?
she's a mixed martial artist, a.k.a. one of the most deadly trained human beings on the planet.
Sure.
They're MMA fighters. There was a story a while back in California, I don't know if you heard about this, where a guy robbed a bank, and one of the people behind him in line was an MMA fighter.
Yes.
And his two friends happened to just walk in.
Sure.
So they just completely, without, the video is hilarious.
Sure.
Takes no time. Just absolutely the most vicious and well-skilled fighters, because they do all of it.
Sure.
They're Neo.
Right.
From The Matrix.
This is also becoming an argument for why concealed carry is awesome.
Sure.
You have regular citizens, a building full of people. Most people are good. If all people knew MMA, then the good people would beat up all the bad people.
Yeah, exactly. So, she's actually an MMA fighter, and on top of that, she's fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
And she's a fucking ridiculously skilled actor.
Sure.
AKA, she's out of everyone's league.
Right.
And except maybe Michael Fassbender's league, which we'll talk about a little bit more in Centurion than here. But
sure, that's fine. So she doesn't do a lot of acting, though. She was in Ring Girls, which is a thing because of what it is.
She barely acts.
This reminds me of the Zoe Bell thing. It's almost like
perfect.
take a stunt coordinator or a stunt double, essentially, and give them a movie. There's this thing it's always debatable if Soderbergh's method of casting works.
Sure.
Because he casts these people that are non-traditional actors.
Right.
And
he casts a porn star to fuck, and he casts a fighter to fight.
And the thing people always say is, oh, their performances... They said the same fucking thing. Remember we talked about that with Sasha Grey. Oh, she's a porn star, but she's just fucking people. She can't act. Reviews are the least artistic. If you've never read a film review, just as an experiment, go read one, and you'll never need to read one again. They make some stupid pun in the title, and then they're done talking about the fucking content of the movie.
Haywire? Hey, where's my money?
Right. I don't know. Maybe everyone loved this movie. I don't know. Probably not. But, I always fall for his women. I mean, Soderbergh cast women in film, and I just go, oh, real people. I love real people. This is great. But, I mean, I think this works. And here's why I think this works. And who cares what I think or what anybody thinks?
As always.
So this doesn't fucking matter. But I'm going to make my case for it anyways. I think it works because, of course I'm going to say that. But it's different, man. It's not that archetypical Mia ass-kicking woman. But it's also not... we're reinventing Tomb Raider, give it a fragile protagonist.
So they could.
Everybody show the woman gets raped in the beginning. We all feel sorry for her. She's so emotionally vulnerable. Instead, I mean, we're not playing up the emotional angle. We're not playing up I guess we're kind of playing up the ass kicking, but not in that I'm the boss of everything.
No, it's
one-liner.
No, it's the same type of efficient badassery we saw in Taken.
Yeah, sure.
Where it's not showy, look, I'm the baddest motherfucker ever lived. It's, if you become a problem, I will put you down. Right. I have something I need to do.
Sure. I mean, I would say even less than, because Taken, you think about the Liam Neeson, phone conversations. I mean, this is just a super spy doing her job. Yeah. That's all this is. This is what it would look like if there were fucking super spies and you watched them and they did their job. That's what we're seeing here. Yeah. That's the movie you want to make. This is the person you cast for this. Is it really the only, Think
about it. Yeah. Go through the film.
Wow.
Think about all the A-list actors. Sure. I'll just name them. I'll do the actor's name. You tell me whether they're a man or woman.
Okay, great. This is good.
Michael Douglas.
That's a woman. Oh, sorry. I've already spoiled the joke. Okay, yeah. So
Michael Douglas.
Great.
Antonio Banderas. Michael Fassbender. Channing Tatum. Ewan McGregor. And then that other guy who wasn't he in Red State?
The other guy is the guy
rides in the car.
Yes, he's not a woman. You're right.
There's no women.
Certainly the central character.
Sure. The only women in the film, there's the waitress.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are some women in the background at that party scene.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't matter. Right. I mean, the central characters of
she doesn't have a mother.
Wow.
You have. Man. She is the only female role. She's kicking back. Yeah. It's really intense because I didn't realize it until the second time through. But by the time I'm getting to the end of the film, when she does that thing where she kills one of Ewan McGregor's character's goons in front of her father, and he sees her as a monster. Sure. That's the moment where the only woman in the entire film becomes a machine.
And the fact that it took that long for a character that is super spy about doing her job. Yeah. To basically make her a force that isn't, I guess maybe just because you're watching it and you're following her as the protagonist, you feel like there is this softer element to her. Yeah. Because she's a person. She's a human being. When I see her being chased, there is that kind of thing when you watch a rape revenge film and you're feeling for this main character that doesn't feel static. Right. But by the time you get to the end, the fact that maybe even just internally, instinctively inside yourself, you had some kind of, oh no, watch out feeling. Yeah. Like a doubt. Sure. The fact that you had any doubt at any point that she's totally got this covered. Yeah. I almost feel bad about that.
Well, you get to that conversation with Paul where he says, I've never done a woman before. Right. And the response is, oh, don't think of her as a woman. Sure. That would be a mistake.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And that's
very deliberate.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because that's the kind of thing that you would expect a film to call out or expect to be obvious in a film. Sure. But because she's such a big character and she's the central focus to everything, you never realize that it's an entirely man's world, sure, until you look back and realize that the only people that she's kicked the ass of are men.
Well, the movie doesn't have time for those considerations.
Yeah. Well, it's because the film basically just brings up a bunch of stuff and expects that you will go onto your podcast and talk about it for 25 minutes.
It's great how, Gina Carano, amazing. Yeah. My other favorite amazing thing about Haywire is you are watching, especially the scenes with Michael Fassbender. Oh, yeah. You're watching a spy's world that has no consideration for you. Mm-hmm. You are seeing how two incredible spies talk and act when undercover. Sure. And it has this respect for the audience in that you don't need, the novice to enter the scene and have things explained. There's, they're having these conversations on the phone. And there's always somebody in one of these movies, not necessarily, like the outsider thing we talked about on the Cronenberg episode. Yeah. But just that thing where someone makes a mistake or goes, we can't talk about this on the phone. Someone might be listening. Call me back on another line. Mm-hmm. We can have a movie full of spies, but there is always some kind of moment where we go, oh, no one understands spy shit. Let's, clue everybody in. We never get that really deliberate type of this room is bugged or we have to get out of here and talk somewhere else. It's rare we ever get anything but the insider look.
Right.
This is kind of fly on the wall. This is how spies would actually act. You are right there watching them at the peak of their game, and the movie doesn't slow down to go, oh, let's show people how to come into a spy's world.
Right. I mean, it even disregards you when they're setting up the whole deal and they use the straight up, the lingo.
Yeah.
You know, I'll forgo the hazard bumps if you remove the necessary materials clause or whatever.
Thank you for having that kind of respect for the audience.
Yeah.
We can get that, and if we can't, then it's lost on us, and fuck us.
Well, you say that, and it's just immediately you go, okay, this is a real spy world. This isn't Spy Kids for grown-ups.
Right. Despite Antonio Banderas, all grown up.
Well, he is a super spy in this. Look at the size of his mustache.
Right. That's how you know. The thing that accomplishes is it lets the spies play steps and steps ahead. It's beyond even just realism. It's showing the pinnacle of what a spy movie could accomplish if we always just dove in, not quite Mission Impossible style, not quite Ocean style, but instead we just went, let's cut to the climax of Oceans and make an entire movie out of that.
Yeah.
Let's cut to the part where we've already got all the setup, and now we're just watching how these things operate. We're kind of shadowing them as they do their job.
Yep.
And we're seeing as much as these movies could accomplish if they didn't have to, if they didn't think they had to talk down to us.
Sure.
That kind of respect for the audience is something we used to hit on in movies a lot. And we haven't talked about it a lot because, one, we already talked about it a lot in the beginning of the show. And two, I mean, you and I naturally love those movies. So we just give them the credit of talking about them.
We put them on double feature.
Yeah, that's just the thing, is the conversation needs to be had. And so we have it. And that's our way of going. And they give an incredible credit to the audience. But this movie, I mean, it does it so
it really does.
So well and so much. I can't think of a time recently we watched a movie that just so boldly went, the audience will figure it out.
Yep.
We don't have time for that. We're doing this other thing. Just go for it.
Right. Well, and that's kind of another one of those moments where the independent Soderbergh pops out, where he's not making, a movie that explains the heist.
Yeah.
He's making a movie that reveals the world.
Sure.
It's just as much begging you to try to follow as it is revealing itself in the only subtle and realistic ways that it should.
Well, and you talk about revealing the world. I mean, one of the things I think about with Soderbergh, and again, that marriage of the two things, is he's a guy who has a lot of really interesting camera technique.
Oh, yeah.
And, you've seen that play up commercially in things like the Ocean's movies, or be toned down a little bit in things like Aaron Brockovich, right? Just kind of judging the level of, how much of that he needs, can get away with,
right?
What, would fight the commercial success of something. In this movie, I feel like he's using a lot of these artistic camera things he does to better inform the world, to instill a sense of thing, to tell you your place as an audience member without needing to spell that out. He puts the camera in a place that says, okay, you're the audience, you're in that place. When you watch her running around, the camera isn't right with her, maybe crank style.
Yeah.
Or, like it would be in a highly, slickly produced action movie, to go, you're right there, your camera's landing with the punches. Instead, you're standing back, in the diner on the floor, terrified, crawling away from these people who are really fighting. Or you're, the scenes where she's running away, evading people, the camera's sitting up on somebody's balcony. You are up on a balcony just watching this thing from a world you're not a part of that happens to be going on. Or you're under a cement block or something. I mean, there's a lot of things that are just stylistic, like he's using a lot of wide angle stuff, or the kind of vignetted, the burned edges, the silhouettes in the airplane hangar. Scene talking to Michael Douglas, I really like. And Dutch angles are another one too. But I mean, that's, it's stylistic stuff. But there are things where the camera, it's those vantage points, especially, where I feel like that's where he's addressing the commercial audience. If I can get really fucking metaphorical and artsy on you for a second, he's addressing the audience by going, I'm putting this camera in a spot where a normal person would stand to go, hey, normal person, I see you hanging out over there.
Yeah.
I know your place
Sure.
and how you fit into this thing here.
Right.
So he's not outcasting the audience. It's an even greater
Yeah.
respect. He goes, hey, you and me aren't spies.
Right.
So I'm going to stand over here with you with the camera,
Yeah.
and we're just going to look in on what they're doing.
It's almost kind of this weird thought experiment of what if all the people who haphazardly caught the bits of this film just by
Yes.
being around
Yes.
all got together and just talked about what they saw.
Yeah.
And it's one person
Well-
going, well, I just saw this woman running down the street. Yeah, and
Exactly.
then I saw a woman come around the corner and she got into a cab.
Exactly.
And they're just one at a time chronologically just talking about the
Sure.
brief moments in something they didn't understand.
It makes you feel like an observer
Yeah.
of these things, because that's the place, you want to be. That's how you want to be thinking about this movie as an audience member.
Right.
So it's a little bit more of a subtle thing he can do. I mean, there's, I think about the scene on the balcony because of the way the camera, it's sitting there, it's showing one side of the street and then it pans over to another side of the street. And the focus is far out there on the street, but out of focus, physically closer to the lens, closer to the camera, is somebody's fucking laundry or
Yeah,
something.
Right.
So it's actually glancing over that in a way that almost seems accidental.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally intentional, but it's going, oh, you're really immersed in this spy thing. If you stop for just a second, you realize I'm just standing here doing laundry.
Right.
And there happens to be spy stuff going on
Yeah.
over there. And it does it in a way that's just blatant enough that I think, I mean, you know the scene. I know the scene. We haven't talked about this, but we can now discuss this because it's just obvious enough to make you for a second stop and go, oh yeah, the camera is putting us up on all these weird ledges and
Yeah.
stuff, isn't it? Oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh wait, back to the spy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's having that impact on you. It's not directly saying anything to you. It's just giving you the feelings. To go back to, the scene where she's leaving the hotel and she's just had that conversation and, people are all trying to find her. You are suspicious of every fucking extra in the background of that scene.
Every car that moves, everybody that walks by. Yeah.
She's dead center in the fucking frame. You should be looking at her. She is the only thing in focus. The only thing in focus.
Uh-huh.
And she's in the middle of the frame and there's just tons of room. And still you're going, who's that guy back there?
Yeah.
What's that car doing over there?
Sure.
That van's, you're thinking about the van.
Yeah,
the camera's
absolutely.
not focused on the van. Nothing is telling you to look at the fucking van. But I'm watching the background so closely, I couldn't tell you what she's been doing for, 2 minutes straight.
Yeah.
There's that famous...
Because you're not looking.
I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a video of people playing basketball, and in the middle of the video, a gorilla just walks through the frame. And it's kind of a psychological experiment. People can look it up. I'll try and link to it. But most people don't notice a guy in a gorilla suit walking through the frame. And, I won't go into a big thing about it, but that's a lot of what the movie's doing is it has a central figure right in the middle. She could, be eating a funny looking sandwich and I wouldn't have even known because I'm so distracted by these other elements that the film has really subliminally told me that I need to be. I mean, I guess they directly told me somebody might be following her.
Sure.
But man, I'm just so immersed, and the camera's fucking done that, and I'm blown away by this movie. I don't even know what to say.
Well, and talk about utter respect. There's that fucking end moment where she drops from the ceiling. Antonio Banderas goes,
God.
shit.
Yeah.
And the film goes, you know what happens.
Yeah.
You've seen her
right.
kick enough ass. You know what she's out for.
Oh, perfect.
How about some credits?
Just Haywire, perfect. My favorite thing ever. Let's talk about Centurion.
So Centurion is Neil Marshall in a level of beauty only seen in the establishing shots of The Descent.
All right, so hold on a second. Neil Marshall. We haven't done all his films?
No, well, fortunately for me, and unfortunately for all of Podmanity, he's still making them.
I remember when people complained about Rob Zombie?
Yeah.
Oh, Neil Marshall. Keep making movies.
So, Centurion...
So he didn't make Drive. He made Centurion.
He did make Drive. Yeah, exactly.
And now we have it on the show.
Right. And Centurion is a film with three key elements. One is a helicopter.
Good.
One is Michael Fassbender, and one is the idea of historical fiction.
Yeah.
Or as we like to call it on Double Feature, based on the truth and lies.
Sure. I like to think of everything as alternate reality.
Yeah, that's good too.
So I just think of every movie as telling me that it actually happened, and then I can go, aha, alternate fiction. This is exciting. What if Hitler survived World War II? Wouldn't everything be all steampunky? That's the actual answer, by the way. In all of alternate fiction, Hitler survived, and so things would be more steampunky.
Fair enough.
That's the answer.
So in this level of alternate fiction,
Sure.
we have It's the Romans versus the Picts way back when people were fighting with swords.
Sure.
Violently fighting with swords.
Right. You mean in 2006 when 300 came out?
Yeah. This film is gorgeous. It's ridiculously massive sweeping shots of Ireland and sweeping shots of, all of these different mountains and snow and rivers.
Sure.
They even do these showing off shots that double as establishing and the characters moving. You know the one I'm talking about, where follows the waterfall up, goes over the cliff, and they're just running.
Yeah.
It's supposed to illustrate the breadth of being trapped behind enemy lines without a fucking radio.
Sure.
That's the film.
Yep.
It all starts in, I guess, Rome. It starts neither at the beginning nor the end.
Yeah.
In a very short flying tom-tom.
Yeah, with a flying tom-tom. Okay, so flying tom-tom from the $1 Million Hotel.
Yeah.
A scene where tom-toms are flying, and we're going to get back to that later in the movie. Please try and forget about it so we can surprise you.
Right.
This is a mechanic we've talked about before.
Yeah, and this is a particular flying tom-tom that also doubles as our bookends.
Yes.
He opens the film running through the snow, and he's bleeding, and he's tied up. And
Blood
he
on
says,
the snow, hooray.
Yeah, and he says, "My name is Quintus Dias. This is neither the beginning nor the end of my story." And you think, ooh, poetry.
Yeah, right.
And that maintains throughout the film.
Sure.
And we'll get to that and why that works. But then it goes back and you see the beginnings of Quintus Dias in this story. And you see him being tortured and captured and failing and losing. And he escapes. And then you see that thing from the beginning of the film and you're, 15, 20 minutes in?
Right. Yeah, it's not much of a flying tom-tom.
Right.
It flies into the second chapter of the movie.
Hopping tom-tom.
Sure, that's fine.
And that's kind of this interesting moment where you realize that this character's story is different than the arc of the story.
Yeah.
The story is about, this war and these soldiers trapped behind enemy lines, but that is just the story of Centurion, the story of the fucking film, is only a part of the character's story.
Sure.
Which is something they never touch on in films. You never really think about the fact that the characters in films are alive for 30 years before they turn on the camera.
Yep.
And 40 years after they turn the camera off.
Yeah, so this is just a brief period.
Right. And before we talk about the actual story of Centurion and the war and everything, I think we need to talk about Quintus.
Yes.
And there is no talking about Quintus Dias without talking about A1 Michael fucking Fassbender.
Yeah. This is a guy that I thought was just one of those actors I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
That I had seen a bunch of movies he was in, and I needed to sit down at some point and find out, the classic Fassbender and where he came from and all that.
And then you realize you've seen everything he's in.
He's kind of new.
Yeah.
He's a name that I just became aware that people were talking about, and he was showing up in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I'd seen most of his stuff. If I would just fucking think back, he
pops up in 300.
Yeah. Before that, he did Band of Brothers. I think that was the big HBO thing, 2001, something like that. But I mean, I don't think there was a whole lot until 300.
Yeah.
And that was in this period of maybe 5 years of Michael Fassbender just doing a ton of fucking movies.
Well, that was immediately followed by his Inglourious Bastards role.
Sure.
Which is actually really interesting because Michael Fassbender produced and directed a stage adaptation of Reservoir Dogs where he played Mr. Pink.
No way, really?
Yeah, so
I had no idea.
I'm thinking that's where Tarantino sees him, and once Tarantino pays attention to somebody sucking Tarantino's dick.
Sure. Do you know when that was?
It was back, he was still living in England. It was back before 300 even.
Oh, man.
This was very early on in his career.
So either 300 or Inglourious Bastards is probably the moment of notoriety.
Right. Absolutely.
300, he had long hair in 300.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize him until I went back.
He says, there's two versions. In the rated R version, he says, "Then we will fight in the shade." But in the PG version, he says, "Then we will hug in the shade."
Sure. Bees.
And so from, those humble beginnings, he starts doing everything that's great in film. Every notable film that comes out following that, he does what? Hunger, Shame, Prometheus,
sure,
Dangerous Method.
Well, and he also has these notable, I mean, when you think about Inglourious Bastards, that undercover fucking bar scene.
Yeah.
I mean, perform that experiment. Talk to somebody who's seen Inglourious Bastards and go, name 3 really good scenes from that movie. Just a fun thing. Just name 3 scenes.
It'll be a scene with Aldo. It'll be a scene with Hans Landa, and it'll be the scene in the bar.
Yeah, it's interrogation's got to be one of them in the beginning, and the bar scene has to fucking be one of them.
And then probably that's a bingo.
Oh, I was just thinking that too. Yeah, I mean, so he has that that moment that's really incredible in there, and then we haven't mentioned this, but I mean, fucking X-Men.
Yeah,
man, he's in First Class. There's this. If you don't care about comic book movies, which by the way is totally fine, but there is a movie starring the X-Men that's set in the 60s, and he plays fucking Magneto. How do you not see that movie?
Right.
He plays Magneto. It's set in the 60s. It's about the X-Men.
Yeah.
Did I mention it's set in the 60s? Who doesn't go to that?
Probably one of the strongest Marvel films to ever come out. It's easily one of the strongest Marvel films in the fandom. Because you can't be because there's not enough of it in the actual comics for it to betray too much.
Right. Well, also to go, hey, isn't this great? It's a great movie. I promise it's great. And it's not a Bryan Singer movie. And you go, really? It's a good X-Men movie without Bryan Singer and it's set in the 60s and Michael fucking Fassbender plays Magneto. Anyways, and then Dangerous Method too, the Cronenberg
Plus,
thing.
not to mention, First Class is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who did Kick-Ass. So,
there you go.
This is the moment where we realize that Michael Fassbender only does films directed by notable directors. This is a wonderful moment for me because I get to tell everybody whoever said Neil Marshall wasn't notable to fuck off.
There you go. So you have Neil Marshall, you have David Cronenberg, you have Ridley Scott,
Ridley Scott, Zack Snyder.
Holy crap!
Matthew Vaughn.
Holy crap! But there are other people in the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
There's Dominic West, who was Detective McNulty in The Wire, which will always be the most nototable thing he's done, I guess.
Oh, wasn't he in the Punisher Warzone?
He was Titus in 300. Maybe it's just a bunch of actors from 300. But I don't want to talk about McNulty. I want to talk about female characters. Of course I do, because it's me and it's double feature.
Well, and
it's Neil Marshall.
Exactly.
Don't worry, I was getting to that. It's Neil Marshall and the ladies.
Olga Kurylenko plays Etain, the she-wolf.
Yeah, she does. She's this mute scout. She is. So, first of all, when we talk about women being awesome on double feature, I guess this is a bad example because we just talked about Haywire, where we were trying to hold up, this woman doesn't say much and she kicks ass and she's plays it straightforward and isn't that great. But a lot of times it's the more complex characters or people who aren't falling in. I mean, it's one of my favorite things personally. I think that probably goes for you too. When you have a female character that's drawn up in a way that isn't the exact fucking same as every, one of three female archetypes.
The only female archetypes we tend to fall generally in love with are the femme fatales.
Well, that is the one. But Neil Marshall gets this free pass at just creating flat, easy female warrior because he did The Descent.
Yeah.
And after you do The Descent, where you go, I'm going to write 8 totally different female characters. Then for the rest of your life, you can just go, this one has a bow. Yeah. And you'll go, I know this guy's okay with women. So I'm just going to enjoy the thing he's created here.
But if you look at Etain, her motivation is so fucking dark that
it is.
All you need, I mean, that's what I think is wonderful about Neil Marshall going, she kicks ass. That's her thing. She kicks ass is because she kicks ass for a while. And then you go, here's why she kicks ass.
Sure.
Can you actually question her kicking ass now?
You can have this character in this movie, and I'm not saying he gets a pass at making a simple character. Right. I'm saying I believe that a simple character is what's called for.
Exactly.
I will take his word for it because he did The Descent, and that's really enough for me. She plays this role where she's, you think of her like a Roman god, right? She just represents fucking revenge in its purest way. You find out that, her tongue's cut out. That's part of her character. She's mute, and
her family was killed in front of her. She's been raped. Right. I mean, she has gone through it.
She's just a living weapon. Yeah. I mean, they talk about her like she's a legend, like she's a fucking Roman goddess. And when the characters come up against her, they're coming up against this impossible force. There's there's a very brief period in the movie where you don't know who her character is and what she's about. And you get that fake out, like you might have this mysterious whatever, maybe double crossing, maybe it's a femme fatale thing.
A rogue.
Right? The doomsday thing. Yeah. Right? There was another example of Neil Marshall doing that straightforward underworld Mia kind of character. And, embracing what we had a conversation about doomsday. People can go listen to that. But here he's doing a character that at first glance could look similar to that
yeah,
character.
absolutely.
But instead, she is once you find out that turn,
Yeah.
you also lose that whole mysterious whatever.
Uh-huh.
It's more like, no, that's just who she is.
Sure.
That whole doesn't have a background, doesn't have a personality, doesn't talk.
Uh-huh.
You find out that's not a bunch of mystery for you to figure out who she is and her personality
Yeah.
and get to know her. She's just a goddess.
Yeah.
She is a mythical creature.
Sure.
She's a fucking beast.
Sure.
That, that has to
Right.
be overcome. That's her role. And it's right when you find out about the missing tongue in the background. That's also about when you find out, everything that's happening with her character. That cements who she is.
And the thing that's amazing about the character of Attain is that she is slaughtering these. You're basically introduced to these 7 characters, the 7 soldiers.
Yeah.
And she's slaughtering the only characters you're really allowed to get to know.
Sure.
And every time she kills one, you're a little hurt. You're a little upset because the numbers are so small and they're so stacked against these people.
Yeah.
And you really want to see them win. Every time she kills one, you hate her a little more.
Sure.
And yet when Quintus is about to kill her, you just hope so much that she'll just talk and he'll be able to basically go, on behalf of Rome, I apologize.
Right.
Please let me go.
Right.
And he'll appeal to the humanity. And she's desperately human. That's
Sure.
the thing. She's not a monster.
Sure.
She's so desperately human, but they can't talk. There's this massive cultural disconnect. They're
Sure.
from 2 different worlds. And when he kills her, a part of you dies.
Right.
I mean, you have seen this unstoppable killing machine, and every time she kills somebody, you hate her, but you also understand why.
Sure.
And
I mean, that's why I go with goddess.
Yeah,
When you think
perfect.
about mythically, you think about these, Greek gods, Roman
Yeah.
gods. They spoke on behalf of humanity.
Yeah.
They represented facets of humanity.
Uh-huh. They
In
were
this
idolized
case,
for what they did perfectly.
You got it. And so she is a perfect killing machine. It doesn't make her human, but it gives her this connection to humanity.
Yeah.
Where she's this facet. She is this all of rage.
Exactly.
It's not an accident she can't speak. She
Sure.
becomes an abstract.
Yeah.
You invest in her this kind of whatever it is, hate or revenge or oppression, she becomes the thing that
Yeah.
you have to topple to succeed.
Yeah. And the way you have to topple, apparently not just Attain, but anybody in this film, is through gratuitous fucking violence.
Yeah. Well, so the big question for me coming to Centurion for the first time was, can you make a splat pack film with medieval weapons?
Yeah.
Is that what this is going to be?
Right. And the answer, it comes in one really basic way that eventually trickles down into a bunch of, I believe
Sure.
Centurion would be 100 bloody ways.
Okay.
But the method of making a splat pack film out of medieval carnage is cutting the head in half from like about at the nose.
Yeah.
And not fully decapitating a
Oh,
person,
God.
but half decapitating a
Well,
person.
that's where you get that awkward little string of flesh that
Yeah.
holds the. Oh, jeez, man. It's a stupid question. Can you make a splat pack? The better question is, why has no one made a medieval
Right.
splat pack movie?
It's so good.
Because you think horror conventions. If you think, all right, go do a horror movie.
Uh-huh.
You think, well, I set it in the woods and I have a big guy with a mask.
Yep.
And this is
Sure.
what you think about horror. You think high tension.
You think Cabin in the Woods is what you think.
Yeah, you don't think swords and axes.
Right.
Which turns out makes the bloodiest fucking thing
Uh-huh.
ever is swords and fucking axes.
Right. Well, and you get this whole thing where the film is going to be violent. They cut Quintus's chest in the beginning.
Sure.
And the setup for that first battle finally comes, and they're in the forest. It's foggy as shit, and one of my favorite iconic moments happens before the massive carnage of that first battle.
Sure.
Which is when they form up, and it's quiet, and the captain, the general, says, whatever comes through that fog, hold the line. And at that moment, whatever comes through that fog is, 1, going to be horrible, the worst thing ever, and
Right.
2, impossible to hold the line against.
Sure.
So you're sitting there going, maybe they're riding dinosaurs,
Right.
maybe they have a tank.
Sure.
You're trying to figure out what Neil Marshall's going to do. Maybe it's just the crawlers from
Sure.
The Descent.
Could be the least ferocious wolves ever filmed.
Right.
the docile, ironic from the guy who did the movie Dog Soldiers,
Right.
but, harmless puppies
Yeah,
who we're
sure.
terrified of.
Instead, it's what, 20 flaming boulders.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The fuck?
It's so amazing.
Didn't see flaming boulders coming, but I guess that's why they're shrouded in
And that's
fog.
where you get this, it's the moment where you realize that it's the same thing. It's the Vietnam War. It's the Irish versus the English.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of parallels to in this film, where you get these people who are organized warfare fighting guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
And that is where, and if you know anything about history, those are the bloodiest battles.
Sure.
The ones where the rebels come out of the fucking woodwork.
Yep.
And the people who don't know how to fight out of formation
Sure.
just get slaughtered.
Well, that's the thing, man, is you have people who go in and they have fucking armor and they're trained.
Yeah.
And when two groups of people have armor and they're trained, then neither one of them goes down very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, unless one is just blatantly better than the other.
Uh-huh.
But when you have a lot of people, I mean, guerrilla warfare, those people don't have armor.
Yeah.
They have sticks that cover their chests.
Sure.
And also, the other side that has all the fucking armor is not prepared for the guerrilla warfare.
Uh-huh.
So both sides are just fucking dying everywhere. Just left and right.
And it's this ridiculously vicious and that's the thing. It's called Centurion. You know there are 100 soldiers, and if you know anything about the film, you know that there are 7 for the
Right.
majority of the film.
Sure.
So you know that at some point in the film there will be a scene where 93 people die.
Sure.
And that scene is bloody and in every bit of wonderment to the Neil Marshall Splat Pack saga.
What you would come to expect. One of those other people, before we just gloss over what becomes the little
other 93,
ending.
the other 93%.
Well, there's Tammy at
Yeah.
the fucking, from 28 Weeks Later.
Uh-huh.
Oh
yeah.
Who we have a half hour left. Let's introduce a likable woman,
Right,
so they're
sure.
not all warriors.
Right. Yeah,
Just
she's
to
a witch,
sneak in
maybe.
sneak in a little thing at the end to go back to what that thing you were saying, where these characters have these lives.
Yeah.
And we just see a small portion.
Right.
Tammy just happens to be around, toward the end there.
Well, and yeah, she's really good, and she brings up a lot of stuff in the film. But the thing about Centurion, and I mean the meat of the plot, and we rarely cover plots on Double Feature because who the fuck cares? It's that you have these 7 people, and they're the survivors. I mean, they have lived.
Right.
They are going to survive.
Sure.
Nothing can stop them. Liam Cunningham, I mean, he gets to a point in battle where he's killing people with the weapons that they stab him with.
Yeah.
These are survivors.
Sure.
But it just goes to show that even with the 7 survivors, all it takes is one fucking guy to just, I mean, the only reason they're even being followed is because one guy kills a child.
Sure.
And that guy becomes the worst human being on the planet.
Right.
And anytime somebody might survive, he makes a selfish move. And it's basically you watch him whittle down the characters just as well as Etain is whittling down the characters.
Right.
I'm talking about Thax.
Yeah.
That fucking guy. And he ends up living almost all the way till the end. You fortunately get to see Quintus wonderfully destroy him.
Right.
But it's this weird thing where you watch who are supposed to be your protagonists. They have an inside man who's on, I mean, he's
Sure.
not necessarily on the bad guy's side, but he's on the side of entropy, right? He's on the side of chaos. He's chaotic evil.
To go back once again to this idea of, Roman myth, I mean, you have to have the traitor.
Sure.
That's kind of a classic theme to a lot of tales of legend and myth.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not Roman or it's not Greek mythology, but he's Loki.
Yeah.
He's the mischievous god who comes in and just does tiny little things that end up ruining the whole thing for everybody.
Sure.
I'm not talking about Avengers Loki. I'm talking about actual Loki.
Right. Gods who never get their feet wet. Loki.
Sure.
I love that too. That just little moment of it's easy to turn to the gods for salvation, but the soldiers do all the fighting.
So
or whatever.
beautiful.
The gods never get their fucking feet wet.
Which brings me back to, I mean, the best point to end on the film, which is the same thing we started with, where you have this voiceover, and it's wonderfully poetic because Fassbender can do nothing wrong.
Right.
But it also goes to show that Neil Marshall is not just a fucking stab and slash. He can write this poetry that illustrates these high, I mean, how beautiful does it portray the failings of war and the failings of wartime?
Yeah.
And then it ends on the same note it begins, where you think, okay, well, Quintus has been poisoned and he's on his way out, and okay, well, he's going to die in the hands of his witch.
Right.
And then he says the line. Which
is also, by the way, we're talking about a flying tom-tom. You could do the lazy thing.
Yeah.
The reason flying tom-tom is a term because people just fucking put it in their goddamn movie. And not even necessarily, $1 Million Hotel, which was our origin point for that. But a lot of times you chalk these things like hamster style in your movie because, I don't know, I didn't really have anything special and
easy
just put it in the movie.
Yeah.
But the scene comes back. The quote does not come back till the end.
Right.
So that scene, you noted earlier, it's like 15 minutes or fucking whenever it is that it just shows up again in the beginning. But the quote comes back around at the end. We're not ending this isn't bookends.
No.
It's we've separated the bookend and the flying tom-tom mechanism. They start in the same scene. They finish in different spots.
Well, and the best part is that you may call it a bookend because it starts and ends with the same line, but the line is, "My name is Quintus Dias, and this is neither the beginning nor the end of my story."
The website is doublefeatureshow.com, and the email address is doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. Send us an email and tell us how much you liked Haywire or Centurion, or more likely both, or most likely that you saw neither of the films and just spoiled yourself. All of the things we referenced on today's show, you can go back into the older shows and find that stuff. Especially The Descent, if you want to look over that little
or
gem
any
of
other
a
Neil Marshall
terrible year one episode of Double Feature. What are we going to try and do next time? Maybe on Double Feature if we don't suck too much. Give me something easy.
Give you something easy?
Yeah, you got two simple films. That
all right. Let's do Gummo and Pink Flamingos. That'll be really fun, really easy.
Hate you. Are we actually doing Pink Flamingos? Is that really a?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember writing that in the schedule.
Yeah, it's happening.
That's really a thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Fought that for so long. I'm just afraid of it. I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid of it.
Gummo's not going to be any easier.
Papa Mau Mau. Watch more fucking film.
I'm afraid. What?
Think about it.
Whoa. Okay. I don't even want to talk about the other thing now. But, the thing that bugs me about this, just having this conversation with you is without having heard anyone ever say anything about the movie Haywire, I know that the conversation in review world, it's either going to go one of two ways. It's going to go, this movie sucks, blah, blah, a bunch of stupid stuff that I personally don't care about. Don't want to hear, don't care about.
Sure.
Or it's going to be a person going, this is a unique and amazing blend of the smaller Soderbergh pictures and the bigger ones.
It's where you take the cast from Ocean's 11, put Sasha Grey in the middle of it, and then kill off the cast of Ocean's 11 one by one.
Right. But I mean, I have to say it because it's true. It's fucking true, man. There is a natural tendency to look at his movies and think,
which is this?
Yeah, I mean, we have the artsy stuff, we have the commercial stuff. When are they going to combine into a perfect thing? Gus Van Sant, we had the same thing.
Sure.
You see his artsy stuff, you see his commercial stuff, and you go, eventually, these things might combine into one person. Not
that
to say
was called Milk.
Well, that's it, man. We're bored. I'm bored right now.
I'm sorry. There's a chapters menu. You can go up, you can click again, and then bam, you're talking about Centurion, you're talking about Haywire, you're talking about
You can
next
skip
week.
to other parts of the show.
Who
That's
fucking
great.
knows?
That's
Who
a great
fucking cares?
feature.
And then if that's all, wonderful and great, spoilers. That's the other thing. We
There's spoilers
spoil the
on
film.
this show
Every week.
Why didn't you tell me that 200 fucking episodes
I don't
ago?
know. Every week we spoil the films. We get a kick out of it.
That's like
Gives us-
400 fucking movies that have been spoiled for me.
Yeah, spoiling the films puts us at half-mast, so we make sure to get it in at least once a week.
Oh, Jesus.
Can
we start talking about the movies?
Yeah.
Haywire is amazing.
Haywire is... Yeah.
Can I tell you something about Haywire?
One thing?
Well, I want to tell you one thing, and then we'll just move on to Centurion.
Okay.
That's not true at all. I'm going to tell you a million things about Haywire. I hadn't seen this yet.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is all sorts of weird, because it's a Soderbergh movie.
Yeah, that I saw in the theater.
That you saw in the theater and then told me to see.
Yeah.
Haywire is my new favorite fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
I am in love with Haywire. Oh my God, is Haywire good. So Soderbergh is this guy we talked about on the show
We
before.
talked about him.
Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
Congratulations, you have found Double Feature. Michael Kester found Double Feature.
I did, yeah.
And my name is Eric. And
no, I can't leave.
Your reward, you're trapped here for at least 40 minutes, my friend. The movies we're doing on the show today are Haywire and Centurion.
Yeah.
But I feel like in order to get into this show today, you need 2 pieces of information about the very show itself.
Okay, so if I were to take a random stab at, what those would be,
Please.
The first would be chapters that you can navigate through this podcast.
This is great. This is great information.
Much like Quintus Dias through the picked Badlands.
Can you tell after 5 years we're so fucking bored of giving the intro?
Yeah, we did the girlfriend experience.
We did do the girlfriend experience. And his movies are perfect for the show because there's a bunch of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
It's always weird stuff. There's they're talk about me kind of movies.
Sure.
That's fine. At any given point, I feel like this show is easy after a Soderbergh movie because this is what you do after you go see a Soderbergh movie with somebody.
Absolutely.
But we talked about the girlfriend experience, totally different than the stuff from Haywire. But we did mention some of the same Soderbergh stuff.
Yeah.
The kind of tendencies he has as a filmmaker. And so I don't want to rehash a lot of that, but he makes a lot of artistic, smaller movies.
Right.
And he makes a lot of bigger budget movies that kind of finance those.
Sure. And then do you get the feeling that Haywire is the first time he did that both at the same time?
I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, man, I try not to want to say that because that's obviously the thing about this movie.
That is
right?
the thing about this movie.
I can
there's
hear...
2 big things about this movie that I think are absolutely fantastic and bizarre.
Spoil the other one for me really quick.
Gina Carano,
okay.
only female in the film.
I mean, and that was the thing I do remember that came out and everybody said that. They said he's taken all the artsy stuff and building it into a commercial picture. I don't like saying that because I don't feel like there's anything wrong with Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
and I don't
either.
think there's anything wrong with a girlfriend experience.
Agreed.
It's fine keeping those separate, and it seems like I'm being set up to say put them together. Having said all of that, it really, I mean, I see Haywire, and it's everything I love about the big budget spy stuff.
Yep.
And it's everything I love about these people have not been in other movie stuff.
Right.
Oh my God.
Well, and it's got a little bit of our favorite little thing on it. It's got this exploitation factor. Did you see the trailer for Haywire?
I knew nothing about Haywire. You told me to see it and I just watched it.
Okay, so the trailer for Haywire is all of the fight scenes where Gina Carano uses her MMA skills to kill people.
Oh, God.
And then guns. That's the trailer. The trailer is guns and fighting, and then it says Haywire.
So they're billing it like an action film.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is an action film. Okay, so movie opens.
Yeah.
You get that diner scene.
Yep.
And this is what I'm talking about.